The first infection doesn't start with a scream. It starts with a cough, a single breath carrying something that should not exist. Within hours, the body changes. Within days, the mind follows. You could be looking at the beginning of the end. Subscribe to Think What If for more stories that push your imagination to the edge. Science has already written the first chapters of the zombie apocalypse, not in fiction, but in petri dishes and laboratories across the world. Look close enough and you'll see the pieces already exist. A virus that rewires the brain, a parasite that controls behavior, a fungus that turns living creatures into mindless hosts. These are not stories, they are real, and they are waiting for the wrong spark. Imagine this. Deep in a jungle, an ant climbs to the top of a branch. It clamps its jaws tight and waits. Inside its head, a fungus named Ophiocordyceps unilateralis grows, feeding on its body and taking over its mind. The fungus releases chemicals that control the ant's muscles, forcing it to move against its will. Then it kills the ant and sprouts from its skull to release spores. A perfect cycle. Nature's puppet master. What if something like that evolved for humans? You breathe in the wrong spore, and something ancient takes control. You walk, you move, but you're no longer you. Scientists have already asked this question. In controlled labs, they study fungi that can alter mammalian behavior. The problem is mutation. One wrong environmental shift, one untested experiment, and a parasite that once controlled insects could adapt to new hosts. The jump from ants to humans isn't impossible, it's just improbable. And nature loves testing improbable things. But maybe it wouldn't start in the forest. Maybe it starts in a hospital. There's a real virus called rabies lyssavirus. Once it enters the bloodstream, it attacks the central nervous system, flooding the brain with aggression and confusion. Victims lose fear. They bite. They spread it through saliva. Sound familiar? Rabies has a 100% fatality rate if untreated. The only reason it hasn't ended humanity is that it moves slowly and dies with the host. But what if scientists made it stronger, faster, airborne? You wouldn't even see it coming. In 2012, researchers discovered that rabies could merge with other viral proteins in controlled settings. That means it can change. It can evolve. In theory, it could combine with something like influenza, which spreads through air. A virus that kills like rabies but travels like the flu. Within weeks, cities could fall. The infected wouldn't rise from graves. They'd walk out of hospitals, confused, violent, contagious. You wouldn't know who to trust until it was too late. You might tell yourself governments would contain it, but scientists already lose control of samples every year. A report by the CDC listed hundreds of lab safety violations. In one case, anthrax was accidentally sent to dozens of labs. In another, smallpox vials were found forgotten in a storage closet. If that happens with known pathogens, what about the ones we don't talk about? The ones being tested under military contracts, meant to enhance aggression or remove fear? What would happen if one of those experiments left the lab? There's another candidate, Toxoplasma gondii, a parasite that infects the brains of mice, removing their instinct to fear cats. The mice walk toward danger willingly. The parasite then moves into the cat, completing its life cycle. Humans can catch it too, often from undercooked meat or infected animals. In people, it lies dormant, but research shows it can alter behavior. Higher risk-taking, lower impulse control. Subtle, but real. Now imagine if a mutated strain removed more than fear. What if it stripped away empathy, judgment, or memory? A world full of people walking, eating, breathing, but no longer thinking. How would you stop something that turns intelligence into hunger? Some scientists think it's already begun. Studies show nearly a third of the global population carries dormant Toxoplasma. 1/3. Most never know. All it takes is a mutation, a new vector, a faster spread. In that case, the outbreak wouldn't even look like fiction. It would be slow, quiet, unnoticed. By the time anyone realized, it would be everywhere. The zombie apocalypse wouldn't start with screams. It would start with forgetfulness, confusion, and a sudden lack of fear. And then there's nature's wild card, prions, infectious proteins that destroy the brain. They're not alive and they can't be killed. Boiling, radiation, even chemicals fail to stop them. They twist other proteins into their shape, turning the brain into a sponge of holes. Diseases like mad cow are caused by prions. Victims lose coordination, then personality, then everything that makes them human. It spreads through meat and blood. In theory, prions could mutate too. One that spreads faster, lasts longer, or transfers through air could mean an outbreak that never ends. Because you can't kill what isn't alive. You might think that sounds far-fetched, but in 2019, scientists accidentally created a new strain of prion disease in mice. It spread faster and survived sterilization. The researchers destroyed it, or so they say. What if one sample escaped? What if something like that is already inside the food chain? Every bite, every drop of blood, carrying the seed of madness. Still, viruses and parasites aren't the only path. Biotechnology opens another door. In 2024, researchers successfully altered brain chemistry in animals using targeted gene therapy. They switched fear responses on and off. They controlled aggression with light. If someone weaponized that, you wouldn't need infection, you'd need control. One device, one broadcast frequency could turn a city into a mob. No bite needed, just signal and obedience. The apocalypse becomes a matter of code. And the military already explores it. DARPA has funded research into brain-machine interfaces and behavioral modification for soldiers. The goal is control, precision, endurance. But every tool can be twisted. What if the program went rogue? What if the same tech designed to create perfect soldiers started creating something else? Something stronger, faster, unafraid, and unfeeling. You'd be facing not monsters, but human experiments that forgot how to stop. In the end, the line between science and horror is paper thin. Every outbreak scenario you've seen in movies has a mirror in real research. The real question isn't if it could happen, it's when. And whether we'd even recognize it at first. Would you notice the change in someone's eyes? The twitch in their voice? The absence of fear when they look at you? Imagine being one of the first. You'd see the hospitals fill, the news turning frantic, the explanations conflicting. Some would call it a chemical leak, others a social collapse. But by the time the truth reached you, it would already be outside your door. You'd lock it, knowing locks mean nothing anymore. The infection isn't supernatural, it's logical. It's science continuing past the point of control. Keep breathing. That's all you can do now. Keep breathing. Because the more you learn, the closer it feels. The parasites in animals, the prions in food, the viruses in labs. Each discovery is a puzzle piece of the same dark picture. Humanity's curiosity is both its strength and its curse. We always ask how far we can go, but never if we should. You think the dead can't walk, but brain death isn't always permanent. There are documented cases where parts of the brain stay active minutes, even hours, after clinical death. Nerves twitch, reflexes respond. Scientists have revived pig brains hours after death using oxygenated fluid. The bodies didn't wake, but the cells fired again. What if someone took that further, reviving not the body, but the instincts? A pulse without a person, a hunger without a soul. This is where science meets prophecy. Every virus, parasite, and experiment brings us closer to rewriting what it means to be alive. You wouldn't see it coming as an explosion. It would arrive as research, as progress, as one more step toward understanding the brain. And when the moment comes, when the first infected opens their eyes, the world will call it a mystery. You'll call it evolution. Keep breathing. Keep watching. Keep wondering how close we already are. Because the truth isn't buried in fiction. It's crawling under a microscope, pulsing in code, waiting for a mistake. One day, someone will make it. One day, the line will blur completely. And when that day comes, the real horror won't be that the dead walk. It will be that we built them. Subscribe to Think What If for more worlds you should never forget.